So everyone, it's once again time for the differences in spoiler review for the 10th episode of Magia Record anime. So once again, there will be spoilers for the Japanese and the North American version of the Magia Record game. If you are okay with that, then let's get into what the game did in this part of the story. Starting out, we start with basically where we left off last time with this chapter where Alina was very angry that they destroyed the Uwasa because as the barrier, the labyrinth of the Uwasa crumbled, they now all found themselves atop Kamihama's central tower with a whole bunch of other black feathers as well, and basically everyone is in the same spot again. At this point, Yachio then recognizes Alina as a famous artist who does very macabre art. And even though the art is so revolting in some cases, it's also strangely enchanting. So we do get a bit of insight into Alina as an artist, which we didn't really get in the anime at all. And we also see that Madoka and Homura are kind of lamenting still that Mami is potentially dead, we don't know yet, and they kind of want her back, but Aina doesn't want to give her back, so we're gonna have to see how that evolves later. At this point we also see that the Nays are also indeed atop that tower, and they also want to fight a bit, and they also give a short explanation of basically how Alina's magic works. Basically, as I also mentioned in the last episode's different spoilers review, Alina can create sort of pocket dimensions, so she can basically capture witches and uasas in labyrinths, and she can create labyrinths, all that sort of stuff. And she had used that to basically hide some witches away in the labyrinth of the Uwasa. At this point, we then see that the Black Feathers are also going to fight us, and a big fight breaks out between everyone at that point. And Alina kind of doesn't want to hang around anymore, so basically just pockets the witch that she had incubated in that labyrinth, and she sort of just yeets herself off. But Felicia chases after her and actually just catches up to her, so I guess Alina wasn't that fast or whatever. So Felicia also wants to destroy the witch that Alina was running off with, because of course Felicia wants to do that. It's Felicia. So Felicia really wants to fight that witch, but to Alina, that witch is a thing of beauty, so she doesn't want it to get harmed. But at the same time, she thinks to herself, maybe I can feed my witch. So she actually lets Felicia into the labyrinth so that Felicia hopefully dies to the witch. But, well, we're just going to see how that works out, because we're going to now keep cutting between different fronts in this battle that is up here. And so on the other side of this entire battle, we see that the Nays are fighting against Iroha and Yachio, and the Nays, they hint that Iroha doesn't know the full truth yet, but if she didn't know the truth, maybe she would understand. Are we going to find out the truth? No, that's not yet. That's way later. Well, not way later. It's actually the next chapter. So we then cut back once again to Felicia, who has actually smashed the witch and totally destroyed it, which of course Alina really likes, and that she gets extremely angry and completely mad, and even mad as I called it in the other video. And of course she wants to summon her doppel again. Cutting back though, because we want to cut back all the time, we see that the Nays have managed to incapacitate Iroha and Yachio with their flutes, so it's now up to Sana, who is also there, to fight against the Nays, and she remembers her promise that she has made to Ai to fight against the Magius and the Wings of Magius, so that something like this could never happen again. So Sana uses her shield as a sound blocker and deflects sound and does a whole bunch of cool stuff that we don't get to see, because it's just, like I said, just faces talking to each other. And Sana completely destroys the Nays. Amazing. Good job, Sana. Well done. We then see that Tsuruno has arrived to help Felicia and actually just smacks Alina down. She actually just does that. Must be the elemental advantage, because Tsuruno's fire type and Alina is grass type, and that's an advantage in there. But Alina, even though she's just been smacked in the face, she still doesn't want to give up, and she really wants Felicia dead. And she gets even madder than before, because that's just what she does. She gets mad, even madder, and then even the maddest. There's like a Pokemon evolution line in there, and he kind of wants to keep fighting, but Mifuyu jumps in and basically tells everyone to calm the fuck down, and basically wants to get everyone to retreat. We then see this tiny little interaction between Alina and Mifuyu, where Alina basically reveals that she really likes Mifuyu's body. She really wants Mifuyu's body all for herself, because it's so beautiful, it's a work of art. There have been many doujins written about that, we don't need another one. So let's just move on. So everyone basically retreats at this point, and the entire fight is over. Madoka and Homura are still standing around, having been useless this entire time. I don't even know what exactly they've been doing in this fight. Have they just been standing around looking at Alina? Like, I know Alina has been talking to them, but didn't they fight? We didn't get to see a single time stop. There was no mentioning of either Madoka or Homura actually attacking anyone, as far as I know. Yeah, I haven't been joking when I said in the last few reviews that Madoka and Homura, they literally just stand around and wave at the camera. They don't do anything. So they go, oh yeah, we still want to search for Mami, so we're just gonna do that now. And then they just leave because they want to search for Mami and see what's going on there. Then Yachio then asks Sana if she wants to move in at Mikazuki, and of course she says yes, because she has nowhere else to go. And we also know that Sana, she has trouble talking to people because it has been a long time since she has actually talked to another human being. So then in the last section of this entire chapter, we then get to see some more slice of life stuff, where Iruha reports to Team Kamore. For some reason, she just talks to them about what has happened. I guess she just does that sometimes. We see that Sana, back at Mikazuki Villa, has been talking to Iroha a lot about Ai-chan and really not about anything else. And she also has trouble, though, talking to other people. So it's also basically hinted at that Sana is really friendly around just Iroha and not really around anything else, because the game does give quite a few hints that Sana is totally into Iroha. So in order to get Sana to lighten up and maybe fit in better with the rest of the team, Yachio goes shopping for the Makukapu. We don't actually get to see the scene, they just say we're going shopping for Makukapu, and then it cuts, and then they're back home from having shopped for Makukapu. And they all talk about how much of a family they've become, and Sana gets named the family's Sashiki Warashi, which is basically just some spirit that lives in your house if the spirit feels well in that house and it's either plays pranks on people or gives good fortune to the house or whatever. And the team then once again talks about the city building mobile game that they've been playing, if you remember back in the other chapters, where, for example, Yachio built a city where it's only police stations because order is important. Maybe some hospitals as well. I think Felicia's city was just farms, and the cows then went and ran over Iroha's city that then got trampled down. Tsuruno's city was all Chinese restaurants because she wants to open 100 Banbansai locations. And Sana also has been playing this game, and she also has a city. And it's just a whole bunch of farms that are all walled in, so that all of the farm animals are protected from the outside. Nice. So we then see that Asana does a bit of helping with the cooking, but she still has trouble really fitting in, and so she decides to check in on what her family has been doing, her other family. And we get a scene similar to how it happens in the anime, where she sees that her family is completely happy without her. They don't really notice her because, of course, she's invisible, but even so, they didn't really notice that she was gone ever. And she also noticed that her family has still been leaving food at her doorstep, even though she never eats any of it. So that's a thing. And interesting bit, though, that happens here is she writes a goodbye note, basically, to her family. We know nothing ever comes of this later, so she just writes a goodbye notice, and that's basically the end of her entire dealings with her family, and she just moves on. So she goes back home and is now kind of happy with Mikazuki, I guess. All of this gets reported by Iroha to Team Kamore again, and Momoko kind of talks about maybe making up with Yachio, because in the game they still kind of hate each other, so Momoko is still struggling if she does want to be friendly with Yachio again. So back at Mikazuki Villa, though, Sana is finally totally happy and enjoys her new life and is all smiles again. And Iroha then talks again about Ui and asks her, like, have you heard anything? Do you know anything? And Sana basically just says that she has heard of a Hiragi Nemu, but, and this is the important bit, she says that she only has heard some Wings of Magius talk about her, but she doesn't know who Nemu is. She's only like overheard people talking about her, but we don't know who Nemu, or like how Nemu is connected to the Wings of Magius. It's just possible that she's just some magical girl that these people just happen to know, that we don't really know. So that's basically what the game does, and the chapter kind of ends with this, with Iroha once again going like, oh no, will I ever find more information about my sister? She basically does this at the end of every chapter. She laments her sister. Yeah, it's getting kind of old, Iroha. Anyway, what does the anime do in this part of the story? So starting off, we then see a flashback to Sana's old life before her family changed, all in this oil painting style where we see some happy little trees, because every tree needs a friend. And we then cut to a continuation of the end of the last episode where the labyrinth of Aichan dissolves. And interesting bit is that the labyrinth in the anime was kind of suspended in the air, but also facing down, like with reverse gravity. So everyone just immediately falls down, including Alina, who then a little bit later catches some witch labyrinths and some cubes, and Iroha has to go and grab Sana as they fall down, and then they sort of just fly around in the air for a bit. Meanwhile, on top of the Kamihama Central Tower, the Neis are doing their best impressions of two characters panicking, and they're pretty good at doing that. So for some reason there's some machine there that controls, or at least gives information on the labyrinth, and the rest of Team Mikazuki arrive and they just sort of walk over there, and the Neis are so preoccupied with panicking that they didn't even realize that, even though we very clearly could hear that the footsteps of Team Mikazuki are quite loud because they're like walking on metal grates, but whatever. So they walk up to the machine and Tsuruno just boop on a button and magnet activates. Don't know how that works, but for some reason some really giant magnetic force activates and pulls everything in the vicinity around, and actually makes sure that Iroha and Sana and all the other debris and Alina and everything that was falling through the sky is now being swooped all the way over to Kamihama Central Tower, to the top of it. While some really dramatic music plays, even though nothing dramatic is actually happening. Okay, need to fill in that soundtrack somehow. So all the characters are now finally gathered atop Kamihama Central Tower, where we see that Sana is now KO and Tsuruno got him. And even now that Sana is KO, that means that she won't be able to participate in the coming fight. So Aina, similar to in the game now, becomes really mad, really mad, and she releases Teresa, which is a pendulum witch, even though it's not just one of them, it's multiple of them. And in the game we don't actually get to see what the witch was that Alina released. Like, we don't get to see a sprite of it in the story segments, so I don't know if we know what it is. I don't think we know what it is. I don't think there was a gameplay section for this either. So in the game, they basically just show it's Teresa, the pendulum witch. Interesting bit though, Teresa is a witch that was fought in the game in the next chapter. So in the game, we didn't even fight that witch at this point yet at all. It was in the next chapter. Although we didn't actually fight that witch in the next chapter, because next chapter is very special. The next chapter is basically episode 10 from the anime, and we see now that basically a fight breaks out, but unlike in the game, the fight is basically just one big fight against a bunch of witches. And we see just before the fight breaks out, there's this like framed shot of Alina with the witches in front of that, and we have like Alina's name at the top, which looks a bit like witch runes, but it's not really witch runes. We then see Magius written on the bottom. In the very center, we see Teresa in witch runes. We see on the side of it, we see some antlers, some rib cage, some other body parts around the edge, which looks really nice. Sadly, it only appears for like a third of a second. Couldn't they have shown this for like a bit longer and maybe draw more attention? I don't know, because it looks really cool, and it gives a nice bit of like sense of feeling to who Alina is, but we only get to see it for like half a second, maybe. I don't know how long it was. I don't know. So the Neis are also there, of course, and they mention that they raise witches as well as Uwasa for their goal of liberation, for salvation. We don't know exactly how they tend to or want to do that yet, but yeah, that's what they want to do. So then this whole fight just goes on for a little bit. The animation quality is a bit all over the place, don't worry about that. And it all basically ends with Tsuruno and Felicia connecting, I kind of want to say it's a bit similar to how it was in the game where Felicia fought the witch, and towards the end of that fight, Tsuruno came in and both together they beat Alina basically. So in here it's just, well, they connect and they beat like one of the witches, and then the rest of the witches are still there, so they didn't actually win the fight. But Alina also wants to summon their doppel because she wants to feed their bodies to a witch, basically similar to what you wanted to do in the game. And she tries to do old Dorothy the doppel again. Once again, we don't actually see the actual body of the doppel, we just see the paint. I don't know why we don't get to see old Dorothy's body. Maybe they thought it looks a bit too weak because the body of the doppel looks really... it looks kind of odd. Like a children's toy, maybe, but that's kind of the point with witches. They're not supposed to all look super duper badass. I mean, Candy, for the most part, was just a bunny. I mean, yeah, it has a ribcage embedded in it, but it's still mostly just like a bunny. So, I don't know why they didn't show it. It does look a bit weird. So, as Alina is now trying to go all out, Mami just comes in and sort of almost headshots Alina and orders the Nace to retrieve the witches with Alina's cubes. And Mifuyu is there and she goes hi, and then that's basically all Mifuyu does. Now I'm going to talk a lot about Mami later because the Mami has done a complete 180 to what has happened in the game, and now everything is completely flipped on its head. There's a whole lot of stuff to talk about, but this is at the end of the video and I need to keep going for what happens in this chapter. So Mami insinuates that Alina, like there's this line where Mami says that, Alina, you didn't do anything to the witch, did you? Basically, what Mami is saying is, of course, witches, they prosper more if they get to feed on people, if they get to kill some people. And Mami is basically insinuating that Alina might have fed some people to these witches to make them stronger, to make them proliferate. Yeah, and split up maybe. But Alina just sort of laughs and then just sort of jumps off and was like, she just fucks off, dude. So at this point, Mikazuki then has a short little talk to Mami where Mami talks about wanting to reach salvation without sacrificing anyone, and mentions that she also, or they in general, also stop witches and wasa if they go berserk because they don't want to hurt people, right? But they do want to reach salvation. So without them being able to really talk about that even longer, they just sort of run away as well. We don't really get to talk about anything with the Magus happening because that's the next chapter. We then just see a very short broadcast about the damage of Kamiyama Central Tower, just to show that, yeah, some real life implications are going on here, but yeah, not like it really matters. I mean, who cares? It's not like the broadcaster was a magical girl or something. I mean, they're not. Sana then moves in at Mikazuki Villa, where we see that she has trouble adjusting because, once again, she hasn't really talked to other people in that long, but she still remembers the chess that she has played with Ai, where she always got wrecked in like a handful of turns, but she still had fun doing it. So she has trouble, of course, socializing with all the people there, and she's still rather gloomy and kind of depressed and sad, and she tries playing chess on Lichess, of course, and in order to cheer up everyone, Yachio, as she looks at this cupboard, she notices the mugs of her dead friends, of course. We see the mugs of Mel. We see the mugs of Mel. We see the mugs of Mifuyu, who's not dead, yeah. The mugs of Kanae. And we see her own mug that is kind of broken. So seeing this, Yachio then decides we need to get more Magukapu. So the entire team goes out and goes shopping for Magukapu. And Sana, of course, he wants a cat Magukapu. I've already talked about Mr. Persolot in the last review on why she likes cats so much. Because her cat got fucking killed by the writer. Good job, writer. And more importantly, though, we see that Felicia, she really likes cows. And I promised you that we're going to talk about this. So basically, the reason why Felicia likes cows, and why she even says specifically in the line, she says cows bring families together. Basically, as part of her backstory, it was before she became a magical girl and before she accidentally killed her own parents. What happened is, it kind of hinted at that her parents weren't really good parents, like they were fighting a lot, they were maybe a bit mean to each other, they weren't really quite that happy all the time. Maybe they would have divorced sometime down the line, who knows. But what happened is, at some point, they all decided to go to a farm. And it is hinted at in this one memoria that talks about this event, that at this farm was like the one time where her family was actually happy, where no one was fighting, where everyone was friendly. It was just them with each other being happy and some cows. And so Felicia at that point basically has sort of connected cows with happiness. And that's why she likes cows. And like I said, she does hint towards this with this line where it's like, cows bring families together. Ah, and no anime only has no idea what's going on there. Has any idea what's going on there. So they all go for some magokapu, which all sort of look a bit like their outfits, because of course that's what you do. And as they all celebrate their magokapu, Sana then decides to go out and visit her family, because even though now she has these magokapu, she still doesn't quite feel the sense of family. She wants to understand what a family really means. So she goes out and visits her family, and she sees that, yeah, they've still put some food in front of her room, and of course there's a whole bunch of symbolisms. I say some people have said they're a bit heavy-handed, like, yeah, whatever. Let's talk about them for a bit. So the symbolisms that we see right here for Sana's place in the family. First off, we see that there are 5 light bulbs. Only 4 of them are on, and the last one flickers a bit. Of course, it's like for Sana. We see that there's a cake that's cut only into 4 pieces with 4 glasses. We see that the family that she's looking at is in some distant room behind a pane of glass, where everything is contained within this room, and she doesn't have a place in it. And we also see that the eyes are censored, and everything, it looks very different at distance, and she looks very isolated from the rest. And yeah, a lot of symbolism. Chef loves to do this stuff, and Inokari also loves to do this stuff. They're a match made in heck. Let's go on with Sana. On her way home, she hears some voices of some people getting called by their names, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there's 2 special cameos hidden in these voices. First off, one of the voices says Mariko, and one character in Magia Record, one magic girl, is called Ayaka Mariko. Now the thing is, Mariko is her last name, and within a family you wouldn't call someone by their last name unless Ayaka was like at someone else's place, maybe at Shizuku's place, who knows, and there they called her Mariko. Possible, not quite sure. It's also possible that this is not quite intended, and it just happened to line up with her last name. And then right afterwards we see someone called Hayato. People made the JoJo meme, and I'm a joke jokester myself, but this is probably more like a reference to Hayato from Magia Record, who is the kind of boyfriend of Aimi. Aimi is a very infuriating character, but yeah, probably supposed to be about him. But yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say these are probably cameos. They might, like I said, they might just be coincidence that these names seem to line up with 2 names that we already know. Then on her way home though, once she's reached her home, Sana has then finally decided to become a proper part of Team Mikazuki and call this her family, and joins the rest, and even wants to help with dinner. Oh, isn't that nice? I'm going to talk more a bit about what happened next later, but first off, we then see a shot from the base of the Magia's Hotel Faint Hope, where we see some Oscars floating around. Oscar, of course, are the minions of the Witch of Happiness, Shitori Igumo, who I thought we might be able to see. Like, when I first saw the scene, I was like, oh my god, are they going to show Shitori Igumo? But no, we don't see it. I thought it was in this room. I really thought it was in this room, like behind where they're sitting. I thought it was gonna be there, but I guess they don't want to show it yet. Or maybe I got the wrong impression and it was actually in a different room, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, we don't get to see Shitori Egomo yet. Instead, we see that Mifuyu and Mami, they report to Toka and Nemu. Not sure why everyone is transformed. I guess I can kind of see why Toka and Nemu are transformed, as in the writers want to hide who they are. So they give them their magical girl clothes, which maybe we might not be able to recognize, something, I don't know. But yeah, if you're transformed, don't you expend more magic than if you're not transformed? Isn't that the whole point, where you stop transforming after the fight is done to conserve magic? Why are they're all on the same team. They're all on the same team. Why are they all transformed and wasting magic? Ah, whatever. Anyway, so they report to Toka and Nemu about what has happened, and Mami once again mentions, like I said, I'm going to talk about Mami later, don't worry about that. Mami mentions that she wants to do something about this, but she doesn't want to hurt anyone, basically. We then see that Mifuyu reminisces about Yachio. He's like, oh, will we ever be friends again? I wonder if my ex-girlfriend will ever come back to me, basically like this. And the Nees arrive, who are just the most precious good girls. And I mentioned that I hope nothing bad happens to them. Don't worry, guys, nothing too bad happens to them. And they cook some dinner for Mifuyu, and everyone is happy. We then get to see a very, very quick flashback of Mel and Yachio cooking. We can, if you're like an anime only trying to dissect this, you would probably notice that Yachio has school clothes, which we don't see at any other point, meaning that this must be quite some while back, maybe more than a year, when Yachio was still going to this particular school, because right now she's actually in university, but I don't think it was revealed that she's going to university. It's just that we never get to see her school clothes. So yeah, so this was like over a year back, I think, and we see Mel, of course, and the reason why we're getting this flashback, and to some degree why we also saw Kanae in some other flashback, is because we're setting up the very next chapter. Like I said, it's basically episode 10 of the original anime. It's basically what's going to happen right now, where we dive into the past and into the truth behind everything. And right afterwards, we then get to another twist, basically, where we are back in Mikazuki Villa, where Iroha talks once again about Ui to Sana, and Sana says that she knows Nemu as a Magus. So in the game, she basically just said, well, some people mentioned her at some point, I don't know who that is, but in here, she specifically mentions, yeah, Nemu is a Magus, dude. And then the end card. The end card is, of course, everyone's favorite, suicidal lesbian Ren. I'm going to talk very, very quickly about Ren for some anime onlys who are watching this and don't know Ren. I mentioned that Ren is the #1 most popular character in all of Magia Record, for a good reason. I have an entire video talking about Ren, talking about her lore, her backstory, her personality, why she does what she does, all of that stuff. It's called Lore Time. Ren Isuzu Explained, basically like that. You can find it on my channel somewhere. I made like a month ago, but to just give a very, very quick overview, Ren is basically supposed to be this pure-hearted angel, kind of angel-like character, but because she's very shy, she got bullied a lot, tried to kill herself, but as she tried to kill herself, she wished to not die and survived, at which point she basically became this reborn angel. That's basically her entire motive. She has a really strong theme. It's like a really, really strong theme, probably the most thematically rich character in the entire game. And then later on, because of her purity, she realized that there's just too much evil in the world. Even if all the witches were destroyed, there's still too much evil in people's hearts. She also tried to kill herself again. When I said that she's suicidal, I'm not kidding. At which point she then gets saved by Rika and Ren then basically hit it off together. I mean, not officially, but they're basically engaged with each other and are the most popular ship in the entire game because they're so goddamn gay for each other. So yeah, that's basically a little bit of Ren. If you want to hear a lot more in depth about Ren and all of this crazy thematic richness and depth that is hidden in Ren's character, check out my Lore Time Ren Isuzu Explained video. Chill. But let's move on to a big overview of this entire episode. We still have to talk about Mami. But first off, the Uwasa Labyrinth, when it crumbles, in the game they just sort of crumbled and then they were on top of the tower. And there was nothing about that. In the anime, they made it really dramatic, where they're like falling from the sky, and then there's this machine with the magnet that has to suck them to the top of the tower. I don't know why they made it so dramatic, especially with the dramatic music. They could have just appeared at the top of the tower. I'm not quite sure why that was so important. Anyway, that happened, and also there are no black feathers around, more probably because in the game, like I also mentioned before, black feathers are just there so they can be like, halt, evildoers, and then they get punched in the face, and that's all that happens. They're just like mooks, like minions that you just mow down in half a second and don't think too much about it, because they're basically bumbling idiots. So in order to make sure that, one, it doesn't get too crowded, and two, black feathers don't get disrespected so much, they're just not there, okay? Because if we showed more black feathers and they just get mowed down in half a second, we wouldn't think too much about it. We want to humanize our enemies, not dehumanize our enemies, right? That's basically the idea here. The fight, of course, in the game, there was a lot of cutting forth between multiple fronts, like multiple people fighting on different locations that we're cutting between. In here, it's really just one fight between the team and the witches. And Alina is just in the background for the most part. And also, of course, there's no Monarch and Homura because, like I said, they have nothing to do here. They don't do anything. So yeah, get rid of them. Nothing of value was lost by removing them from this part of the story. And then we get to the point where Sana, of course, decided to join Team Mikazuki. In the game, they basically just sort of go, well, Sana, you have nowhere else to go, so why not come to us? That's basically how it was in the game. And we don't get to see this specific conversation in the anime. But I assume the conversation in the anime was rather similar, where Sana was at the top of the tower and was like, well, where do I go? So that's what Team Pro was like, hey, let's just come, since you have nowhere else to go, just come to our place, okay? So in the game, what happened though is, or basically in the game and the anime, we see that Sana has a lot of trouble adjusting to her new life, basically, while at least in the game it was shown that she was at least very receptive towards Iroha, and Iroha and Sana is quite a popular ship in the Magia Record community. So a lot of people were really angry that Iro Sana wasn't really shown in the anime. I personally don't care, because for me the Sana ship is Sana Manaka. Read Manaka's Magical Girl stories. Like, Sana and Manaka are actually a pretty good pair. And Iroha already officially, not quite officially, but basically is already married to Yachio, so unless you want to go for like a triple ship, Yasai, that's a good ship. Anyway, so the whole Irosana pirate was kind of cut out. So in the games, you still at least had Iroha to latch onto, but you had trouble like socializing with the rest of the team. And then after the Magokapu, and when she went back to her family, she kind of realized, okay, I'm gonna stay with Mikazuki. But I think it was shown better in the anime, especially because this entire scene of her going to her family was a lot more well done in the anime, not just because it was visually a lot more appealing, but also it also showed more in more detail how Sana was being like shunned by a family, but also more importantly, it showed that this was not really a place that she could call home, not really people that she could call family, like other people could call their family a family. And so I thought it was better done in the anime. And of course, we have spent a lot more time in the anime with Sana at this point. So in general, I think that the whole Sana's arc, how she got to Mikazuki and decided to live there, was better done in the anime. I know some people said that in the anime it wasn't really shown how she originally got to Mikazuki, because we just saw her on top of the tower, and the next shot she was already in Mikazuki moving in. But it was just a one-liner. It was just I mean, in the game, it was just Yachio saying, hey, Sana, you want to move in? And Sana goes, yeah, whatever, I have nowhere else to go. Do you really think it's that big of a misstep to not have these two lines? Like, come on. Since you basically all know that this all happened anyway. Like, we know that a scene like this must have happened anyway. It's just inferred instead of specifically shown. Anyway, also something I wanted to quickly mention is, I know that some people have brought up the Magokapu shop might be a reference to the Tianjin Binhai public library in China. That's possible. They've used some real-life locations already in the past and possibly used this one. Although they didn't use guardrails. Usher is having a really big fit with the designs of the Magia Records, or in general the Madoka universe. So no safety guardrails anywhere. There's also been, now in the anime, there have been even more hints towards Kanae, towards Mel, because, of course, we can visually show Kanae and Mel in the background. We can show their cups instead of just hinting at, oh, I think there's more cups in the cupboard than just the ones that we see, stuff like that. So, because we have the ability to show stuff visually, we can show the Kanae and Mel hints visually, and that's really nice. Since we also know that these characters that we have seen in the background in flashbacks aren't around anymore, and we have no idea, no one talks about them or mentions them, we can at least infer that they're potentially dead, which they fucking are, and that's basically how we're now setting up the next chapter that comes after this. I also mentioned in my other review, like, oh, I hope nothing bad happens to Team Mikazuki. don't worry, nothing too bad happens to them, but let's just say they're gonna go through a time of relative unhappiness next, in the next few chapters. Wait a second, isn't it actually the case that this is actually the last point where we are potentially getting slice of life stuff? Because from next chapter on, from chapter 6 onwards, so that happens, then chapter 7 happens. They could potentially put a break in between chapter 7 and chapter 8, I probably won't. And then it's just one smooth ride to the end. So yeah, this is probably the last bit of slice of life that we're getting, because from now on, we're gonna get ourselves into the middle of a conflict that keeps rolling and keeps getting stoked until the very finale in episode 26. So yeah, from here on out, it's one giant ride all the way to the end, with many ups and downs. But more importantly, I still haven't talked about Mami yet, right? I still haven't talked about Mami. I need to talk about Mami. So the thing is, the reason why I wanted to talk about Mami so much is because the entire idea behind what Mami was supposed to represent in the game between what she represents now in the anime has been completely flipped on its head. Now, a lot of the Mami plot that happened in the game happens next chapter, but I can still talk about it right now because we've already seen a lot of Mami stuff that wasn't actually in the game. So first off, looking back a bit, when Mami originally appeared in chapter 3, I think it was, we saw that she basically in the game she wanted to kill Iroha because she really was dead set that Iroha was a witch, and so she didn't really know what else to do other than fight. In the anime, it was shown that she was a lot more reasonable, but she hinted that someone here might be hiding some stuff. I think she basically just caught on that Yachio knows a lot more than she's letting on, because she's basically this spin-off's Homura, and yeah, of course she knows more than she lets on, but we're getting to that next chapter. So it was shown that Mami was more reasonable in the anime. Moving forward, we then saw 2 episodes ago where Mami just quickly showed up to save Iroha, but didn't help her in the fight against the witch. So it was kind of hinted at that, like, people who saw the game thought she might have been brainwashed, or I thought that maybe she was just, like I said, like kind of like an observer, just observing what was going on to see what happens. And now we know for sure that basically Mami has joined the wings of Magius, and here's the important bit, out of her free will. So in the game what happened is, we've seen in the game these hints that Alina has done something terrible to Mami, and basically what Alina did is, well, first off, she bested her in combat, and secondly, she then forced an Uwasa onto Mami. And what that basically did is, it's basically mind control. Basically, Mami in the game gets brainwashed and mind controlled at that point onwards, and she becomes what we call Holy Mami, where she's basically just a brainwashed slave, and that's basically the entire thing. She appears next chapter to try to kill the main characters again, and then at some later point, it all gets resolved. But here's the thing. Here's the reason why that is important. We all know Mami, of course, as a character. We know the kind of character that Mami is like, and we know how she reacts when she's being told the truth. So when we see Holy Mami, we could at least assume that maybe Mami has been told the truth, and because the Wings of Magius, or the Magius in general, have a solution. You can see, okay, Mami always goes berserk when she hears the truth, or when she believes the truth, basically. But the thing is, Mami really just wants a way out. The way out that she had in the original anime was just to kill everyone. That's the way out. But now she has been presented with a way out that doesn't necessarily get people killed, and actually would save not just her, but everyone. She now has this perfect solution to all of these problems. And so it would make sense that she would join the Magius, right? It would make sense that she would be willing to join the Magius. However, in the game, it is then shown that she didn't do it out of her own free will. She got brainwashed into it. And this basically paints the Magius as being really fucking evil. Basically, next chapter is the break point for this, because the next chapter is where all of this was revealed, that the Magius are brainwashing people, and this whole idea that the Magius is morally sort of in a gray zone, this moral ambiguity sort of got completely shattered. A lot of people cite either chapter 6 or chapter 7 or some chapter in those time frames as basically the chapter where the game stopped trying to have any sort of subtlety or reasonable background or any sort of depth to it. It dropped all moral ambiguity and just said, you know what, no, Magus are evil. Magus are just evil, they brainwash people, they want to kill you, they want to do all this terrible stuff, they brainwashed Mami, they just want to do their own shit, and if you don't want to agree with them, they want to kill you. That's basically how it happened in the game, and everyone was really, really sad. Because up until now, it really seems like Magus is in a moral gray zone, where they want to do all of this good stuff, but they might hurt some people, but they want to at least sort of balance it where they don't get people killed if necessary, but if they have to hurt people or harm people in somewhere, maybe they're gonna do that. So basically that's how it was also presented in the game. But then chapter 6 is like, nope, they're evil, they're just evil, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, the good guys fighting bad guys. We're gonna turn this into a shonen anime where they defeat the bad guy in the end by powering up with the power of friendship. That's basically how it happens. But now, and Mami was a symptom of that. Mami was both a symptom and a sign of this being the case. We saw that Mami has been brainwashed, therefore we can be sure that they are evil as fuck. But now everything is suddenly completely different. Everything has suddenly been completely flipped on its head. Mami has joined the Wings of Magus in the anime out of her own free will. And not just that. First off, it makes more sense that she does it out of her free will. The brainwash in the game was kind of completely overkill, because it would be very reasonable to assume that she would have joined them out of her free will anyway, because, like I said, she really wants a way out, and she really, really wants the way out. So it would have made sense, but they completely went overboard, completely went overkill with the brainwashing plot, just to show that they're really, really evil and that they have to save Mami now. But because of she did it out of her free will, out of her own free will in the anime, what this means is now, not only have we preserved the moral ambiguity of Magus with this entire plot arc being reworked. Although I will need to mention that it is still possible that they do something similar to this in later parts. It's possible that Mami rebels against the Magus when she realizes they're killing people and then gets holy mummied. That's possible. It's still possible, guys. I'm not saying that I know everything's gonna happen. I'm just saying it's possible that it still happens. But it's also possible that they're gonna move forward with what they did right now. So not only is the moral ambiguity still kept intact with what Mami is currently doing, we're now actually pushing it not towards the evil side, we're actually now pushing Magus towards the good side, because now Mami is there, and Mami is a moral compass. Mami is now suddenly telling everyone, we don't want to hurt people. We don't want people killed. We want to sacrifice as little as possible. I mean, yeah, we need to stop Team Mikazuki, but can we do it without hurting anyone? And if witches are out there and Wasa are out there and they're hurting people, or not just hurting people, if they're going berserk and even trying to kill people, then we're going to get rid of them as well, right? So now that we have a moral compass on the side of Magus, Magus suddenly looks like they're the good guys. Now the moral ambiguity is still maintained. However, like I mentioned, it's still possible that in the next chapter, on the next few episodes, they're going to go this way, that Mami, exactly because she is the moral compass, Alina decides to once again force the Uwasa onto her, make her become Holy Mami, make her become a brainwashed slave. And then Madoka and Homura have to come in and save her, something like this. So it's still possible that all of that happens, but I hope it doesn't, because I would really much rather like this moral ambiguity to be kept. So yeah, next up we have the dreaded chapter 6. I say dreaded because, like I said, this was the kind of point where in the game everything that had been built up sort of crumbled. We could just see that, okay, they're just evil. And not just everyone, it's not also just that Magus is evil, they're also just really stupid, because by doing what they're doing next chapter, they've actually painted themselves so obviously the bad guys that the good guys could just rally against them. They could just walk around town and say, okay, the Wings of Magus that you've seen walking around, they're doing this stuff, they're doing that stuff, they're doing this stuff, they're doing that. They could just tell them what they did in chapter 6. Hey, in chapter 6, they did this and this and that. And then people who definitely know Yachiro, because she's the oldest veteran in Kamiyama City, they would listen to her. They would listen to Kanagi as well, who we're going to see in some later chapter as well. They would listen to Kanagi as well, because she would would tell Kanagi all of this about this. We know that Yachiyo in the anime has contact to Kanagi, so she would get her around as well. Everyone knows Tsuruno as well because she has Banmansai, which everyone kind of is meh about. So because these characters are well known in the city, and are very respected as veterans, people would listen to them. They could just tell them all the bad stuff that Magius does, and then suddenly you would have hundreds of magical girls all banding together, including Nanaka, who's like the mastermind. All these characters would suddenly band together and fight against Magius. So good job. Not only have you revealed yourself to be completely, totally evil, you've also, by revealing yourself to be evil, created a banner for all your enemies to rally under and band together. So you've now created hundreds of magical girls that want you dead. Good job, Magius. You're both completely evil and completely stupid. That's basically what happens next chapter, and I hope that that's not what we're gonna see in the anime. Yeah, so here's to hoping that the next chapter does not go down that route. We're gonna see a lot of setup probably in the next episode. Like, once again, we have like setup resolution episodes. The next episodes, you're gonna see another setup episode where they're setting up the plot for this chapter. But maybe next episode, we're also gonna see some hints towards how they're going to go. Like, are they going to keep the word ambiguity? Are they going the full-on evil bastards route? We're gonna see, and Mami is going to be in the very center of it. That was that. If you want to see more of this, guys, hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.